December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. It also marked the beginning of one of the largest constitutional violations by the U.S. government ever. Just 2 months after Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9006, which allowed the military to designate exclusion zones in which any and all persons may be excluded. This was used to relocate any person of Japanese descent from the Pacific Coast area, which had been deemed a military zone. Even before the war, anti-Japanese sentiment had already run rampant in California, where over 90% of the immigrating Japanese had settled. After the order was signed, Japanese descent was defined as greater than or equal to 1/16 Japanese. The mass internment was justified in an attempt to hide the U.S.'s ability to intercept codes, where if individuals were prosecuted for sending information to the Japanese Empire, capabilities would be realized. In all, nearly 110,000 Japanese were detained by the U.S. government in 1942, where they lived in barrack-like buildings, and while these buildings met international standards, they left much to be desired, like indoor plumbing and cooking facilities. Armed guards were posted at the camps at all times, just like a prison. But not everything about this time was a negative for Japanese Americans, as they pulled themselves up, regaining a popular view from the United States. From the hard work of the 100th Infantry Battalion, which was composed of Japanese members from Hawaii that were sent to Wisconsin for training due to a fear of loyalty if Hawaii had been invaded, Japanese Americans were once again allowed to join the military on February 1st, 1943, at which point 3,000 Japanese men from Hawaii volunteered for service and 800 from the mainland. When these 3,800 volunteers joined the 100th, the 442nd Regiment Combat Team was created. However, they were never allowed to fight in the Pacific Theater. The 442, which was commanded by white officers, was comprised entirely of Japanese Americans and was quickly sent to fight in Europe. And on June 26, 1944, they saw their first combat in the town of Belvedere. The 442 would see combat in Italy, France, and Germany. The 442 went on to become the most decorated regiment in the history of the United States Armed Forces, including 21 Medal of Honor recipients. The 442 helped to change the way the United States viewed Japanese Americans. One of the men who volunteered to serve out of the internment camp was my grandfather, Frank Nakamoto, and his brother, Moss Nakamoto. And while my grandfather was denied entry after losing the vision from his eye while in the internment camp, his brother carried on and brought honor to the family name and tying it to the 442 forever.